Ayo, what's up? Still me, the great teacher, and with a weird introduction. Basically, I lost the video for this one, so I have to record a new one. Uh, this video right here is for equations of circles, where we will discuss first off standard form, followed by standard to general, and of course, general to standard. So let's just jump right into it. Okay. And for us to understand this, the first thing that we will do is we will work on the Mayon volcano as our example. The concept of circles and its equations are actually applied with natural calamities in order to make sure that people are safe. So let's say for an example that we have the Mayon volcano and it is about to erupt or threatens to erupt. The residents within the 8-kilometer radius danger zone are advised to evacuate. This is something that is mentioned in the news where like people around that kind of radius should evacuate. And now, if TVOX issues this warning about the upcoming eruption, if you're a resident at 6 kilometers east and 7 kilometers south of the volcano, should you evacuate and why? So, for you to know the answer in here, it is important that you understand the concept of circles. So, we'll be working on questions uh, as if it's three different situations. What if it is on the circle, it is inside the circle, and outside the circle? This is just an introduction to it. We're not gonna dive in much with this one, but it's simple substitution. So let's say that the Mayon volcano is located at 00. Should the resident mention in the situation evacuate and why? It's an important detail that if you put the Mayon volcano at 00 and the description earlier was given 6 kilometers east and 7 kilometers south. That makes that resident's coordinates be 6, 7 because 6 kilometers east, that's going to the right side, then 7 kilometers south, that's going down. So the coordinates is 6, 7. So for you to know if that person needs to evacuate, it's important that we understand the concept of the distance formula. So using the distance formula, we will use xy for any point on the circle that is r units away from the center. So instead of using the x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, we're now using hk for center. So it will be a different representation. So in this way, we'll be able to use the distance formula. So if you're wondering what we're trying to imply at this start, is that we have to remember that a circle is the set of all points in a plane equidistant from a fixed point. The fixed point is the center, and this equal distance is represented by the radius. The length of the radius is equal. We know that. So in this case, we can say that xy is any point on the circle, and hk is the coordinates of the center, and r is the radius, which is the distance and the length itself. So in this case, using the distance formula, we're going to have d is equal to the square root of the quantity x sub 2 minus x sub 1 raised to 2 plus the quantity y sub 2 minus y sub 1 raised to 2. And if we substitute our values here, we have to make sure that we know for a fact that the center is the most important part of a circle because that's where we start with. Hence, the center will take the place of x sub 1 and y sub 1. As for xy, the point on the circle, it will take the place of x sub 2, y sub 2. So by doing substitution, it will look like this. And for us to eliminate the squared symbol, all we have to do is to raise the entire equation to 2 or square both sides of the equation for us to cancel it. And it's going to lead us to r squared is equal to the quantity x minus h raised to 2 plus the quantity y minus k raised to 2. And if we fix this thing up or arrange it the way we want it to be the standard, it will look like this. So basically all we did is we changed the left side and the right side of the equation and nothing will happen there. Nothing will affect that. We simply rearranged it. So basically, the equation of a circle in standard form is represented by this equation given that your center is hk and your radius is r. Going back to the problem earlier, you will be able to understand that this equation is not only called standard, as mentioned in the beginning, it's also called as the center radius form. Because with the standard form, you will be able to identify what your center is and what is your radius. So going back, if the coordinate is 0, 0, you will substitute that to your h and k. If you remember, HK is the center and Mayon volcano is the center of that given. So it's going to be 0, 0. So you're going to have x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. And earlier it was mentioned that it's 8 kilometer danger zone. So that means that will be your radius. So if you substitute that, it's going to be 8 raised to 2. So x squared plus y squared is equal to 64. So this implies that the equation representing those that would be affected by the eruption is this. So earlier we identified that the location of the person is at 6, 7. So for you to identify if that person needs to evacuate, all you have to do is to substitute the value of x and y. So if you have 6 raised to 2, that's 36. 7 raised to 2, that's 49. And if you add it, it's going to be wait, 36 and 49, that's going to be 85. And that's not equal to 64. It's greater. Hence, it will be outside. So outside of the circle. So that person doesn't need to evacuate. Now, if you're wondering, when does a person have to evacuate? It's either that person is on the circle or inside. So if greater than implies that the person or the point is outside the circle, equal implies that it's on the circle, and less than implies that it is inside the circle. So that's how it works. And if you're wondering why am I just mentioning this, it's because we're not going to focus on it, but it's an important detail that you understand that it's not supposed to be complicated. All you have to do is to substitute the values and see if it's correct or no. That's how it works. So as we continue with this one, let's have an example. Here we have the radius as 3 and the center as 2, negative 5. So all we have to do is to substitute it in the standard form and it will look like this. And as you can notice, the one that we're doing here is a step-by-step process so that you'll be able to understand later that when we deal with techniques, it will not be difficult for you to see. One of the common mistakes that I've seen from my students is that they change this to y minus 5 because this is negative 5. But do remember that the formula or the standard form given is x minus h and y minus k. It's already minus. So if the given h and k are negative, it changes the equation. So if you notice here, it's y minus negative 5. And we know that when you have minus and negative together, that makes it plus. And 3 squared is equal to 9. So this is our final standard form or final answer. So if you're wondering what could be the possible technique here, all we have to do is to actually get the opposite of it. Like if you're getting confused, like you start with writing x, right? For your standard form. So you have the quantity x. What's the opposite of 2? Negative 2. Then raise it to 2 plus y. What's the opposite of negative 5? That's positive 5. Then what is the square of the radius? It's 9. So you can look at it in both ways. So you can substitute it this way carefully, and then you may also do the technique where you basically get the opposite of the given center. So you may work on that. So as I was saying, here, find the equation of a circle centered at the origin with radius 5 units. Please remember, class, that origin is located at 0, 0. Hence the word origin. It's where everything began. It's where we based off our answers. So in this case, you're going to have this equation because your h is 0, your k is 0. So it's going to be basically x squared plus y squared. As for the radius that we have here, it's 5. So 5 raised to 2, that will give us 25. So this is our center radius form or standard form for the given. And this is something that is common when the center is at 0, 0. Basically, it's automatically x squared plus y squared equal to the square of the radius because it's 0. X minus 0 is x. Y minus 0 is y. We have to simplify those things. It's important to simplify that. So now, how about if you have this kind of equation, given, our center is negative 2 and 9, and the radius is square root of 11. It's not complicated, just substitute. So, as you can see, we have x minus our value for h, which is negative 2, then y minus our h, which is, k, which is 9. And the radius is square root of 11, so we raise that to 2. So this one will be x plus 2. This one will be y minus 9 still. And square root of 11 raised to 2 is basically equal to 11. And that's it. You don't have to make things complicated with this one. Basically, if you have a square root symbol and you raise it to 2, just take it out. And that's the answer. You don't have to always use your calculator or depend much on it. You can answer this without thinking much. Okay, next one. As for this one, we have the center at 7, 1 and containing the point 1, 9. And you're like, sir, how will I be able to answer this if there is no radius given? Well, all you have to do is to use the formula. So the HK is 7, 1, R is the distance from the center to 1, 9. So basically, you will still use the formula if you want to, or you may actually maximize the use of the distance formula. So why are we using the distance formula? Because as stated in the beginning, the radius is not only the representation of the center being equidistant to any point on the circle, but it also has a length. So for us to get the length of it, all we have to do is to use the distance formula. So we have here 7 minus 1, and then 1 minus 9. Now, if you have this one, you're going to continue with having 6 squared plus the quantity negative 8 raised to 2. So 36 plus 64. So square root of that is going to be equal to 10. So your radius is now 10. Since you have the radius now in the center, you can simply put it in standard form with no problem. So substitute that, you're going to have x minus 1 as your first grouping, and then y minus 9, and your radius is 10, so it's going to be 100. So that's how it looks like. Again, you don't have to make this complicated. You may try the techniques that I mentioned earlier. You can apply that to make it easy for you. Like the opposite of 7 is negative 7, opposite of 1 is negative 1, the square of the radius is 100, so that's it. Now, what if you're given with 1, 8 as a point on the circle and 5, negative 6 as the endpoints of a diameter? So basically, both points are on the circle. And the thing here is that it is asking you to remember the important details about the parts of a circle. Always remember, class, that the diameter is equal to twice the radius. So if the diameter is given, you get the half of it, you're going to get the radius. So how do you get the measurement of the diameter? Well, it's the distance formula all over again. So using that, you'll be able to get the length, and you can divide by 2. Or the easier version is simply to get the midpoint. So you might be wondering why you're getting the midpoint in this case. Because getting the midpoint helps you to get the center. Remember that the diameter passes through the center. And again, diameter is equal to half the radius. So basically, it will lead you all to the center. So doing the midpoint formula, you're going to get the h and k, which is 3 and 1. And again, as mentioned earlier, we will use the center and any of the endpoints of the diameter to get the radius. There are multiple ways of solving this. It's your choice which one. Basically, we're applying all of the lessons we have discussed so far, midpoint and then distance, in order to answer this question. And you're going to get radius as square root of 53. And once you have the center and the radius, all you have to do is to substitute it in standard form, and your answer will be this one. The quantity x minus 3 raised to 2 plus the quantity y minus 1 raised to 2, and it's equal to 53. So that's how you put equations of circles into standard form or center radius form. The most important detail here is that you have to make sure you have a center, you have to make sure you have a radius. You may do substitution based off of the standard form, or you may simply think of it like this: the quantity x, opposite sign of the given h, raised to 2, plus the quantity y, opposite sign of the given k, raised to 2, equal to the square of the radius. It's your choice which technique you would like to use. Now, to continue with this one, what if we're now working backwards? We're now given the equations and we're trying to identify the coordinates of the center and the radius. And again, the technique that I mentioned earlier will help a lot in this one. Like, for example, this is x minus 2. The opposite of negative 2 or minus 2 is positive 2. Similar with negative 3 or minus 3. The opposite of that is positive 3. Hence, the coordinates of the center is 2, 3. As easy as that. As for getting the radius, since to get 16, we square the radius. To get the radius, we square root 16. So basically, if you square something, the opposite of that is the answer you got earlier, square root it to go back where you began. So the square root of 16 is equal to 4. As easy as that. It's basically the opposites. Okay? So this is r squared, right? R squared is 16, so get the square root of that. Similarly, as mentioned earlier, this is 5, so it's going to be negative 5. This is negative 1, so it's going to be 1. So it's negative 5 and 1. As for the radius, square root of 64, that is 8. Similarly here, it's this x squared, so basically it states that our h is 0, and this is minus 3, so it's going to be plus 3, so it's 0, 3. And then square root of 81, that's 9. As for this one, you have x minus 1 and y minus 9, so both will be positive for the center, 1, 9. Square root of 20, that's going to be 4 square root of 5, sorry, 2 square root of 5. And then this one, there is no grouping symbols. So therefore, we know that our h and k here are 0. And then 18 square root of that, it's going to be, wait, I have to be careful, 3 square root of 2. Yeah, 3 square root of 2. That's the answer for this one. So not only can we get the standard form when we have the center and radius, it also works both ways. We can get the center and radius given the standard form. Hence, the standard form also being called as the center radius form. So for the next part of this one, suppose that we have the center radius and now we want to go to general form. The important detail here is we have to make sure that we know how to apply the skills in either FOIL method or working with the square of binomials. So for this example, let's say that we have here the equation of a circle in general form, and to put in general, we need the standard form first. So basically, as you can see here, it's expanding each binomial. It sounds and looks complicated, as you can see here, but here's the what I want you to understand. Basically, the final answer in general form is that everything will just be in one side of the equation, as you can notice here. We arrange it starting with the highest exponent alphabetically, x squared, y squared, followed by x, y, and e. The rule here is that our a and b are equal and they cannot be both zero, because if they're not going to be a circle anymore. That equation will not represent a circle anymore. So to continue with this one, let's say that we have the given right here. All we have to do is to maximize our skills from grade 7, 8, and 9, and even 10 in order for us to simplify this. So we're going to work on each binomial. So doing so, square the first term. The square of the first term here is x raised to 2, x squared. Then twice the product of the first and second, x times negative 2, that's negative 2x, times 2, negative 4x. So it could work like that. And then negative 2 raised to 2, that's going to give us positive 4. So once again, the steps are here on the right side. We go through the other binomial. Y raised to 2, that's y squared. 5 times y, that's 5y, times 2, that's 10y. Then 5 raised to 2, that's going to give us 25. And as for the 9, as I've been reminding you guys earlier, we need everything on one side, so 9 should be transposed to the other side. So it's going to be negative 9, equal to 0. And now that's basically it. All we have to do is to arrange it. We'll put the x squared first, followed by the y squared, then followed by negative 4x, followed by positive 10y, then 4 plus 25 minus 9. Those things can be combined, and the answer will be positive 20. And that is now the general form of the given standard form. All you have to do is to work on those binomials. And sir, if you're like, sir, I don't get how the steps work for the shortcut. You can do FOIL method and it's still gonna give you the same answer. So it's your choice which one you would like to apply. So let's have another example. How about this one? Same thing, right? All you have to do is to square the first term. So it's x squared. 2 times x, that's 2x, times 2, that's 4x. 2 raised to 2, that's 4. So similarly, if you continue with the next one, y raised to 2, that's y squared. Okay, we have a meeting now. I don't know if you guys heard that, but y raised to 2, that's y squared. Negative 9 times y, that's negative 9y, times 2, that's negative 18y. Then negative 9 raised to 2, that's 81. I'm so sorry for about that. Anyway, 11 should be transposed. And then if you simplify this, we're going to start with x squared, followed by y squared, and then 4x, and then negative 18y. Here, we combine the like terms in one side or in one section so that we will not be confused. And the answer will be this. X squared plus 4x plus y squared minus 18y plus 74 equal to 0. Again, 81 plus 4, that's 85, minus 11, that's 74. So that's how it works. So that's your final answer. Now, how about if we're going to do it the reverse way? It's important first that we know a specific thing in grade 8 and 9 where we do completing the square. So I'm sorry if I'm going to wrap this up quickly because, you know, we have a meeting. I have to be there in 3 minutes. So general form to center radius form, all you have to do is to be reminded of perfect square trinomials. For example, you have x squared plus 20x plus blank. How do we fill this up? All you have to do is go look at your middle term. It's 20. Divide by 2. The answer is 10. Raise it to 2. The answer is 100. So that's a technique there because this is based off of the one that we did earlier, the opposite way around. Okay? And dealing with it. And then how about this one? It's negative 4. Divided by 2, that's negative 2. Raise it to 2. It's going to be positive 4. Similarly, if you have x squared plus 5x plus blank, 5 divided by 2, that's 5 over 2. Raise that to 2, you're going to get 25 over 4. That's how it works. So, for example, you have this kind of equation. The first thing that you have to do in order to go from general to standard is to combine the terms with the same variable. So, we're going to have x squared plus 8x. Then you're going to have y squared plus 10y, where your 16 needs to be transposed. That's why we have to isolate it. Because in the standard form, we know for a fact that there should be a number on the other side. So here, once we grouped it, it's going to look like this. And now, after we grouped it, all we have to do is to do completing the square. So how did we get 16? How did we get 25? 8 divided by 2 is 4. Raised to 2, that's 16. Since we added 16 to complete the square, we're going to add 16 to the other side. Always remember the addition property of equality. What you add on the left side, you add on the right. Similarly, we got 25 here because 10 divided by 2 is 5. Raised to 2, that's 25. So we're gonna add 25 here. And if you simplify this one, it's gonna look like this. How did we get the factor of the PST as quick as this? Why is it now in standard form? Basically, get the square root of x squared, the answer is x. Square root of 16, the answer is 4. Since the middle term is positive, this should be plus. This one, y squared, square root of that is y. Square root of 25 is 5. The sign of the middle term is plus, so this should be plus. Negative 16 plus 16 plus 25 is equal to 25. And that's the final answer. Hence, the center is negative 4, negative 5, and the radius is 5. Then here, let's have another one. So first off, we isolate the negative 12, so it's going to be equal to 12. Let's group the x's, so x squared plus 4x will be together, and y squared minus 16y will be together. And again, to complete the square, all we have to do is divide 4 by 2, the answer is 2. Raise to 2, you get 4. Divide negative 6 by 2, you get negative 3. Raise to 2, you're going to get 9. So all you have to remember here is we're always going to add. So plus 4 here, so plus 4 on the other side, plus 9 here, so plus 9 on the other side. And to get the factored version of this, square root of x squared is x, sign of the middle term is positive, square root of 4 is 2, square root of y squared is y, the sign of the middle term is negative, and then square root of 9 is 3. Then 12 plus 4 plus 9 is 25. Hence, our center is negative 2, positive 3, radius is 5. And last example, here again, isolate 6. So it's going to be negative 6. So combine the x's, x squared minus 6x, y squared plus 2y. So complete the square, divide negative 6 by 2, you get negative 3. Raised to 2, that's positive 9. So add 9 to the other side. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Raised to 2, that's 1. So add 1 also to the other side. Square root of x squared is x. Sign of the middle term is negative, so minus. Square root of 9 is 3. Y squared, square root of that is y. Sign of the middle term is plus. Then square root of 1 is 1. Negative 6 plus 9 plus 1 is equal to 4. Hence, our center is at 3, negative 1, and radius is 2. So that ends our discussion about equations of circles. And that ends this video about equations of circles, standard form, general to standard, and vice versa. Thank you all for watching this one. Hope you guys learned something. It's going to help you out a lot. And my stupidity continues. And as always, in case you don't see me, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Peace out. Respect, everyone.